It's like a YouTube apology video. You start out with an animal to humanize yourself, to diffuse a potentially tense situation. Maybe that's what I'm doing here. No. Alright, I want to get this out of the way before we do anything else, because this is often a problem when it comes to critiquing something, whether it's a movie, a show, a video game, or in this case, a personality, which, as you can tell from the title and thumbnail, we're going to be talking about and indeed criticizing figures commonly known as debate bros, including Hasan, Vaush, Xander Hall, and any other names that might crop up. One of the major problems that arises when discussing certain figures, whether they are on the left, right, or center of the political spectrum, is the parasocial attachments that their audiences can form with them, something we'll talk about in greater detail later on in the video. This often results in certain people refusing to accept criticism of the figure that they're attached to, and in some ways seeing it as an attack directed at them by association. You may be someone who clicked on this video with the intention of shooting me down before you've even finished hearing what I have to say. You may not even be aware that you have that level of attachment, but if you find that what I have to say does anger you in some way or possibly compels you to personally attack me in the comments, I can't stop you, but I would like you to ask yourself what it is that upset you, when at the end of the day, I'm not criticizing you as an individual or as someone who's part of a group. To put it succinctly and in big words on the screen, critique of something that you enjoy is not a personal attack. I shouldn't have to say this, but I'm painfully aware that this is exceedingly common when it comes to online discourse, and to be real with you, I'd rather not wake up tomorrow and find comments from people who are acting like I broke into their house on Christmas Day and pissed on all their presents. I have faith that you can handle this without getting angry, so have some faith in yourself too. Anyway, let's go. In the past few years, the debate bro has seen a massive rise in popularity. As you can guess, these tend to be young cis men who, for the most part, are white, that almost exclusively produce their content via streaming platforms such as Twitch. They also have successful YouTube channels with large amounts of subscribers and views, where they post clips from their streams and, on the rare occasion, some content that's produced in advance, much like mine. With the rise in popularity of streaming and audiences' growing desire for frequent, fresh content, debate bros have sort of filled a lucrative gap in the market which was unintentionally created by the inception of long-form video essayists. When a particular genre explodes in popularity, an audience's thirst for it grows, and understandably with a format such as a video essay that needs to be researched, written, recorded, and edited over a long period of time, it can be hard to satisfy an audience that consumes large amounts of content daily. It's the same reason Disney plans out a timeline for its Marvel movie releases and now produces TV show content between them. They understand and cultivate the need to consistently consume their products to avoid a loss in interest. Because of the supposed sparseness and inconsistency of leftist-focused content on YouTube, streamers had the opportunity to capitalize on the growing interest in this field, where they were not only able to produce content without all the planning and work that goes into creating video essays, they were able to do so daily, serving as a voice for their audience, arguably becoming figureheads of a growing movement. Unlike pre-produced content, they could offer live commentary and insight on certain topics or events in the world as they are happening, all while interacting with an audience, which in turn can provide them with regular material to discuss, ensuring that streamers don't find themselves in a position where they're left without anything to talk about. They're essentially the most interesting person at a party. They have charisma, a voice which can be heard over everyone else's. Everyone wants to hear what they have to say about everything and anything, and their insight is more valuable than anyone else in the room. Obviously, this is basically just how streaming works. You have the platform and the audience, but the unique selling point of streaming compared to something like YouTube is that there's greater emphasis and utilities for audience interaction, where the streamer is able to offer almost immediate feedback. Unless you're someone like me, since my connection dropped so many frames that you think my stream was a PowerPoint presentation. Shout out to Spectrum for their garbage, overpriced internet, and their pathetic 20 megabytes per second upload speeds. It's 2022. Come on. Because of this ability to interact with a streamer, it's much easier to form a bond with them. You type a message, they read it out and respond. They're talking to you, recognizing you, and possibly validating you, which can feel especially meaningful when you're acknowledged among an audience of thousands of people. The majority of viewers on Twitch are very young, children, teens, and people in their early adulthood. They also consume massive amounts of content from the platform, often daily for hours on end. While there's nothing necessarily wrong with this, it's becoming more evident over time that a lot of people have become prone to forming strong parasocial relationships with online personalities. There's a myriad of reasons behind this, whether it's a lack of fulfillment in real-life relationships, the desire to be part of a community, loneliness, etc. Frankly, there's a lack of research behind this, and it's too early to say for certain, but if you'd like to learn more about this, I actually did do a video as well called "Influencers Are Making You Miserable on Purpose." When you have a relationship with someone, be it family, friend, romantic, or otherwise, you may have noticed that people have a tendency to adopt part of that person's mannerisms or even personality. It's a completely natural thing. I've done it, you've done it. It happens without you even realizing, and it's only when someone points it out that you can notice. This can also occur with parasocial relationships. If there's a public figure that you admire and see regularly, there's a good chance that you'll start acting like them in some ways, whether that's an actor, singer, a fictional character, or indeed an influencer. The younger a person is, the more prone they are to doing this. They're still figuring themselves out, and if they're spending a bunch of time consuming the content of an extremely popular online personality who attracts huge audiences just to hear them speak, it's not surprising that they'd want to be like them. You may even have someone in your life who's suddenly started doing things like using phrases that a streamer says. It's not terrible, I guess it can be annoying depending on the person that they're emulating, but there's something to this, and we'll get to that. Although if you do know anyone in your life that says stuff like PogChamp or Poggers unironically in actual conversations, you need to set up an intervention for them immediately. It's gone too far. This is also the case with people from the debate bro genre. Streamers such as Hasan, vaush, Xanderhall, and others have a huge audience across all platforms and a tremendous amount of influence over them. Their format involves a heavy amount of audience interaction, discussing things such as current events, public figures, and ideas, but overall there's a heavy emphasis on left-leaning politics. Now, to make this clear and get it out of the way early, I don't think it's a bad thing that these streamers are promoting leftist ideology. I personally identify as a socialist, and if you've seen my other content, you'll know that I wear that on my sleeve and try to promote these ideas myself. One thing I do think that's extremely important though is the method in which ideology is promoted. Let me put it this way, I've had a few jobs in sales over the years, and not to toot my own horn, but I was pretty good at it. It's a sleazy job and I never want to do it again, but sometimes you gotta work to live. One of the most important things that I learned though is that everyone is different when it comes to being sold to. Some people like directness, some like it when you're personable, etc. In a way, ideas are much like products. If you want someone to buy into it, you have to sell it to them. You have to reassure them that they'll benefit from it in some way and that they're making the right choice, all while allowing them to come to the conclusion on their own. As the saying goes, he's selling the sizzle, not the steak. Left-leaning debate bros have been beneficial. Social platforms have long been a battleground of ideas where people are steadfast in their beliefs, no one really listening to the other, and I believe that's largely because when you're just discussing these things with regular people online, it can be hard to convince them when you're an unknown quantity with no influence or notoriety. You're just a stranger with no face telling another faceless stranger that what they believe is wrong or flawed. Streamers, on the other hand, do have influence, massive amounts, hence why the term influencer has such a broad definition. They have an audience and they're there for a reason. As such, they have more power when it comes to changing minds, especially when they're able to directly interact with them on a platform like Twitch. The streamer Destiny, who most definitely couldn't be defined as a leftist, gained notoriety for his ability to deconstruct people's arguments and their beliefs in a way that was so effective that numerous people have proclaimed that it was his words that convinced them that they had flaws in their far-right ideologies and ultimately changed their mind. Similarly, Sam Seder from the Majority Report gained some level of notoriety by inviting calls from libertarians and deftly dismantling their arguments, sometimes backing them into a corner where they end up saying the quiet part out loud and just sometimes crumbling into a pile of failure.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person. Thank you for having me on your show.
Sam's great. He gets a pass. The internet. Pretty great, right? You can do stuff like look at nice pictures, check out some memes, buy stuff you don't need while drunk at 3 a.m., see your uncle's questionable Facebook posts, watch videos like this one, or watch content from streaming sites. Except when it turns out that the show that you wanted to watch on Netflix is now no longer available and your only options are to either not watch it, hope that it comes back, it won't, or use less savory means that might get you into trouble with your ISP. So what do? Wait impatiently for your favorite show to return and hope that something else fills the void in the meantime? Well, you don't have to thanks to Surfshark VPN. Surfshark is a virtual private network that helps you remain secure and anonymous while you're connected to the internet by routing your connection through one of its thousands of secure servers around the world. It ensures that what you do online remains encrypted, whether that involves downloading or uploading files, playing a video game, or just regular web browsing, which is extremely useful since practically every website that you visit now is tracking you in some way. One of its best features for me, though, is that it unlocks parts of the web that might be restricted in your country, including streaming sites. So if I wanted to, I could connect to a server in the UK and watch the newest episodes of Love Island and witness horrible, self-centered narcissists form relationships based entirely on physical attraction and eventually realize that it's not enough to sustain a meaningful long-term connection with another human being. Only the finest entertainment from the UK. Surfshark keeps the web safe and open, even when you're away from home. It works across a huge variety of devices, including your smartphone. So if you want to use an open public Wi-Fi network while you're out and about, their app ensures that no one can snoop on you. So here's the deal. If you use the promo code Salari or click on the link in the description below, you can save a massive 83% off their regular price and get an additional 3 months absolutely free. If you follow the channel for a while now, you'll have seen me promote them numerous times before, and that's because they're genuinely good and the price is great. Start surfing a safe and open web today. The fact that debate bros are changing people's minds isn't the problem. The less people investing in far-right ideology, the better. The issue comes with the kind of people debate bros are creating and how they in turn go about changing minds. Although debate bros might be somewhat effective at changing people's minds thanks to their influence paired with the way that they use their words, as I mentioned a moment ago, the average person doesn't have much power unless they're truly gifted. One thing I've noticed over the past few years is the higher frequency of people on the internet and sometimes real life who approach political discussion in a way that's not productive, to put it kindly. It's the kind of person who will go on subreddits or Discord servers containing groups who are ideologically opposed to them with the intention of being antagonistic by speaking down to people, patronizing them, being dismissive, throwing insults, and just being caustic. Their beliefs might be for the overall benefit of society, but the intention of this approach isn't necessarily to convince others, it's to come across as intellectually superior to them, putting across the message that people who don't align with them are inherently dumb and therefore deserving of derision. While there are plenty of people out there who are willingly ignorant when it comes to discussing politics, beliefs are formed through a variety of deep and complex ways. They're interwoven with your socialization and environment, and I personally don't believe that it's right nor fair to accuse someone of being stupid just because they don't share your beliefs. Debate bros are infamously antagonistic towards those who don't align with their belief system. They may not be heading into online spaces to antagonize strangers, but their overall approach to dealing with those who don't agree with them closely mirrors that of those that do, and I think it's safe to say that's not a coincidence. If, for example, you watch Vaush's stream, you'll notice there's sort of a theme in the behavior of the audience and Vaush himself. The majority of viewers are people who watch regularly, and therefore they agree with Vaush, something which is to be expected. They ask him questions about various political issues, sometimes public figures, and in general there's a consensus on these things. Vaush and other debate bros, though, have sold themselves on the premise of being leftists who don't get bogged down with the left's supposed demand for niceties and politeness. They tell it like it is. They don't want to be held down by wokeness or the need to maintain a squeaky clean public image. They represent that anger that we all feel about the status quo, about the wealthy and the powerful who control our lives with the invisible hand of capitalism, and our skepticism towards leadership. It's perfectly fine to be angry at these things, I know I am, but I also don't believe anger should be a brand, because communicating via anger is extremely dependent on the situation, and when you have debate bros convincing people that anger should be their go-to when attempting to convince others that they're right, I don't think it's as productive as people think, and can ultimately do more damage than good. Just look back at the 2000s and the early 2010s when edgy internet atheism was all the rage. There was no shortage of creators on YouTube who made careers out of pointing out the ridiculousness of religion, that it existed only for those who were incapable of understanding and accepting science and logic. These were the people who inspired others to behave in similar ways, posting screeds about how they feel enlightened, living their lives knowing there's no God, creating memes for other atheists to enjoy, and going out of their way to belittle those who don't agree with them. The movement undoubtedly inspired some people to change their beliefs, but when you look back on it now, it's just embarrassing. And I'm sure that a lot of people who participated in it are embarrassed about how they acted now. Sure, going into Barnes & Noble and putting some copies of the Bible and the Quran into the fiction section was the funniest shit in the world when you were 14 years old, but as an adult with car payments, taxes, back pains, a favorite laundry detergent, and a curfew on drinking coffee after 6 p.m. on weeknights, it's really tough to look back on that version of yourself and convince yourself it was just immaturity and you weren't just being an arsehole. Some people might even look back at themselves and ask, why was it so important that I let people know how much smarter I am than them? That I figured something out that even my parents couldn't, yet they insisted it was true. But that's kind of a part of being a teenager, wanting to feel like you have some importance, that you have answers to difficult questions, and therefore what you have to offer the world is valuable, which is often why disaffected teenagers turn to strangers on the internet for validation, because they can do so without having to reveal their age or experience. I look at what's happening with the left right now, and I can't help but recognize a similar pattern, and while I can say that I'm happy that so many people are latching onto leftist ideas, I'm not particularly happy with how much of a striking resemblance it bears to that era of the edgy internet atheist. I really care about this stuff. A lot of people do. It's important, and I really don't want people to get older and reflect upon the time that they were an edgy leftist in their teenage years and diminish the value in a message that they were trying to spread in unproductive ways. I want people to keep caring until the day they die, but I also want them to understand the ways in which this ideology is being promoted through debate bros isn't always helpful. I'm really glad that they're lighting this fire in people, but it's not helpful when this same fire is used in an attempt to burn other people down rather than help them light their fires. Look, if you like these people, I'm not going to tell you not to, or that you're wrong in doing so. I'm sure that plenty of you are able to recognize the problems with debate bros, but watch them for the sake of entertainment or just keeping up with what's happening in the world. So I don't want you to think that I'm saying that you're so malleable that your entire personality is just being rewired just by watching them. But like I said, some people do internalize this stuff. What I want you to consider though is how streamers like Hasan, vaush, Xanderhall, etc. serve as figureheads and represent you and your ideology. Whether you like it or not, these streamers do serve as a kind of standard bearer, especially to those on the outside looking in. They're the ones that people look at when intrigued about what we have to offer and how willing we are to include and educate people with differing perspectives. You may argue that we don't have representatives, but sorry, that simply isn't true. It's just how it is now. Political ideology has long been a form of brand, and figures on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and elsewhere reinforce that. And before anyone says it, yes, I'm guilty of reinforcing that too, and I'm not happy about it, but that's something I might talk about in a future video. Let's just say we should have paid more attention to Mark Fisher. Since we're in this position now and there's seemingly no going back, I would like it so that the people who do represent my ideology do so in a way that's not only inclusive, but palatable for the general public, the ones who aren't already on our side or sitting on the fence. As things stand, I don't think that's the case, and while fingers can be pointed at numerous people for this, the notoriety and influence of debate bros worries me the most. As I already mentioned, they have a brand of being edgy. They're known to yell at others, speak down to them, and sometimes be insulting, something which you can imagine isn't conducive to winning over people who don't agree with you. I mean, when was the last time someone won an argument by repeatedly calling the other person stupid? They're brash. Some like Vaush and Zanderhall even go as far as casually using ableist language and complaining about woke scolds who protest this, a derogatory term used for people who are supposedly being overly sensitive and, in some cases, allegedly holding back progress. They project this idea that diplomacy has become an inconvenience at a time where the world is teetering on the brink of destruction, a sentiment which I understand but don't necessarily agree with, especially when the left is often criticized for its lack of tact when sharing ideas with others, which is more often than not used as a tool by conservatives to dismiss what people actually have to say, suggesting that a lack of civility undermines genuine critique, which is honestly bullshit, but nevertheless, it happens. The whole thing is part of their personality though, cutting through the chaff and getting to the point while being painfully blunt. In a way, I can't blame them. Like I said earlier, ideas have to be sold to people, and if you get bogged down with the details, then it can be easy to lose interest. But their audience is largely on their side already, so there's plenty of room for exploration and education. I know I don't get too deep into theory, but to be frank, I'm lacking the time, resources, and energy. By being media personalities and having parasocial links with their audience, there's also an unfortunate tendency for people to excuse their words and actions, and sometimes go as far as viciously defending them, often by saying that because they've done some good, that automatically overrides anything bad that they may do. That because they have this ability to intellectually dominate detractors, their less favourable opinions should be brushed off. Some will even go as far as reinterpreting what they said in lengthy Reddit posts, performing mental gymnastics so complex that it would make a Cold War-era Russian Olympian green with envy. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your time and energy, but maybe, just maybe, you should take into consideration what else you can invest it in before spending a huge chunk of your day defending stuff like this.
In fact, and this is going to be a real hot take, I have yet to hear a convincing moral or legal argument as to why possession of child should be illegal.
Do they need to be defended? No. They're perfectly capable of defending themselves without much risk of losing their audience or income. Do they deserve to be defended? No, not in the slightest. If you say or do something bad, you should take ownership of it and pledge to do better, which is yet another problem. Debate bro streamers are arguably incapable of accepting criticism from other people. This just is the kind of thing that happens when people become big names. If you have a legion of people telling you that you're right all the time and are willing to defend you to the hilt, it's not surprising that you develop a distaste towards criticism. Being wrong sucks. We all know that. In fact, here's a little bit of neuroscience for you. The anterior insula and the anterior cingulate cortex are the parts of the brain which activate when experiencing physical pain. They also get activated when experiencing emotional pain, i.e. being wrong. I just found that cool, to be honest with you, and I wanted to share it, but regardless, it doesn't excuse someone from refusing legitimate criticism. Not only does it reflect poorly on them, it once again is influencing behavior in more impressionable minds, and influencers shouldn't be infallible. If you want to get some idea about how stubborn debate bros can be when it comes to accepting criticism, I recommend you check out JX's video about his running with Hasan, essentially stealing views from his videos. To give you a shortened version, Hasan watched one of Jay's videos on stream without prior consent or credit, and when Jay called him out for it, Hasan didn't handle it particularly well, claiming that he gave him a fat bump in views, which wasn't true, then pledged to never show Jay's videos on stream again, completely missing the point. It's worth a watch, and Jay's good people. The link's below. Reacting to content has become the bread and butter of a lot of streamers, and debate bros are no exception. They'll open up a YouTube video, occasionally say something about it, maybe let out a light snort out of their nose to show that they're amused, maybe respond to what the audience is saying, or they might just leave it playing to an empty chair while they go heat up a frozen ready meal or take a dump. Cannibalizing content is nothing new, but when you have a huge platform with thousands of people watching, the very least that you can do is tell people to check out a channel if they liked what they saw. You don't have to endorse them, obviously there's some issues attached to that, but the fact is, showing someone's content on a stream isn't the boost that people think it is. As JXE points out, it's a couple hundred extra views, which is essentially nothing.
You're such a fucking dingus, dude. Just show their channel name, dumbass. How is that so fucking hard? Like, what is this attitude that you have?
This is a whole issue unto itself that I may get into someday, but for now, I'll put the links to a few videos that I like on the subject down below. Welcome to the Boost Bust, the section in each video where I take a moment to promote small content creators from various backgrounds and disciplines who could do with a bit more attention. This time I'd like to show you the work of Lona Karaman, aka Harman. Harman works as a professional artist, taking on all types of work including creating book covers, but their passion is painting characters from Dungeons & Dragons and World of Warcraft, which comfortably stand side by side with other great artists in the fantasy genre. As you can see, her work is wonderfully vibrant, filled with personality, and makes amazing use of lighting and colour schemes. Each character she paints is vastly distinct from one another, and contains a genuine love for their video game and tabletop inspirations. Harman is also open to commission and does bust sketches for all of her higher tier patrons on Patreon each month. So if you'd like some bespoke art from her, then check out her links below, including her ArtStation page, where you can see a wide selection of her incredible artwork. Be sure to also follow her on her socials, and if you can, offer some financial support. If you'd like a ride on the Boost Bust in the future, then please send me one email to salarivideo@gmail.com. Please be sure to include your pronouns, a brief bio about yourself and your work, and links to your sites and socials. If you work as something like an artist, please be sure to include high-quality samples to be showcased in the video. I won't be able to reply to your emails due to the volume, but rest assured they are all being read. Anyway, I need to go see a guy about... Oh shit, the cops! So, since these people are colloquially referred to as debate bros, we obviously have to consider what gives them that moniker, their ability to debate. Now, I'm not an expert at debate. I can hold my own quite well, and I can't say whether I'm as good as or better than the debate bros, but I'm also not particularly interested in their abilities in this context. To be blunt, I think in general they're not very good at it, at least when it comes to speaking to other well-known figures. Against a member of the public, they can hold up well, but when it comes to someone with training, well, it's hit or miss. What I'm about to say might be an unpopular opinion, and you are welcome to disagree with me or explain why I'm wrong in the comments, but I'm already this deep, so I may as well go all in. Online debates are a pointless waste of time and rarely benefits anyone but the debaters, regardless of whether they supposedly win or lose. Allow me to explain. When a debate is held online between, say, a figure from the left and a figure from the right, they already have their well-established audiences, and they more than likely have some form of attachment to them, enough that they would go out of their way to watch them debate. As such, their respective audiences are already on their side and agree with them on almost every level. What people hope to see when watching their preferred debater is that they defeat and possibly embarrass their opponent, therefore affirming their beliefs and further raising the profile of the chosen participant. As a quick example, take for example this debate between Vaush and Sargon. Both of these guys have their audiences already on their side. Now, if the intention of the debate is to win people over, realistically, how many people do you think change their mind after watching it? Sure, there may be some, and that's good, but probably not enough to matter. I'd argue that their platforms could be used for something more constructive, but in my opinion, these online debates are little more than theatre. They exist to entertain their respective audiences, and like I said earlier, when some of those people are willing to go well out of their way to defend a figure, even if they lose, there's a chance that they won't see it as such because they're so attached to them. Unlike something like a boxing match where usually there's a very clear winner, the victor of an online debate is rarely as certain, largely because after the fact, discourse among the audience can skew in such a way that people can turn the perceived loss into a win. What's really problematic though is that having these debates can give a greater platform to people whose beliefs can be truly dangerous. It's giving them an opportunity to spread their vitriol further and possibly convince people that they're right. So even though winning over a few people can be a net positive, it can also be a negative. You could argue that giving them a platform to speak on is encouraging fairness in public discourse, but honestly, I find it hard to justify when someone might just be spreading hateful rhetoric. Mitigating damage is important, but all online debates really do is serve a spectacle. It turns discourse into a circus, and nothing really changes as a result. Look, I do get it. You're upset at the state of the world, and I am too. As an individual, you probably feel powerless fighting a fight that feels impossible to win. Our politicians and the world at large is owned by powerful corporations that are incapable of failing, which in turn are run by multi-billionaires who do not care about the lives of human beings. They don't care about fairness, they don't care what you think of them, and they don't care about the destruction of the planet, which is why so many of them are intent on colonizing other planets, so they can use up this one and become God Emperor of Mars. This frustration understandably might compel you to find people who have some influence, the ones who have a huge platform, a voice that carries across the world, and words that not only echo your sentiment but your anger. With their growing popularity, it can feel as though you're finally being heard through them, but at the end of the day, you have to seriously consider who you want representing you, and be realistic about how capable they are at winning over people to your cause. We're angry, but anger doesn't win when you have to convince someone. Have you ever had a heated debate with someone and found that they took some time to consider what you said afterwards? Or did they just double down on their beliefs and thought that you were being irrational? Personally, I don't want debate bros representing my ideology. I'm fortunate enough that I have a decent enough sized platform to have my opinions be heard and validated, but for those of you who don't, the idea of someone spreading your beliefs in a far more effective way might be enticing, but you also have to be conscious of what they get out of it and possibly what they gain from you, whether that's fame, validation, or capital. I am not suggesting that these people are just in it for the money, but it's undeniable that some of them have become incredibly wealthy from this brand of leftist discourse, like literal multimillionaires. I'm also not suggesting that leftists aren't allowed to have money. It's a silly argument used by reactionaries as a way of obfuscating real issues, kind of like when Bernie Sanders was judged for his wealth in his run for president. I will say though, and once again this is my belief, and you are more than welcome to disagree with me, I do believe that when people have wealth to spare, it should be used to help others. Sure, people like Hasan have donated towards mutual aid, but he's allegedly called it capitalistic, claiming that it was too individualistic and American. If I'm being brutally honest, it's kinda hard to believe a person's sentiment on wealth redistribution when they have a brand new Porsche parked in the driveway of their $2.7 million mansion. In fact, you know what, I want to tell you something. No, come closer, okay? Closer. Closer, closer. Nobody needs a mansion. Nobody needs ugly $1,000 shirts, and nobody needs to flex that they have money. Come on. Look, you may defend that as someone simply enjoying the money that they've earned. That's up to you. I'm sure that if my wallet was that fat, I'd be making the owners of vintage guitar stores very, very happy. But at the very least, please consider what else he could have done with all that money that he chooses to blow on luxury commodities. It's champagne socialism, pure and simple. It reinforces the idea of class, and if you're in favor of taxing the rich, you shouldn't be okay with it. Even Hasan agrees with me, see? I want to reiterate what I said at the beginning of the video. Critique of something you enjoy is not a personal attack. You might feel the need to leave a comment pointing out all of their accomplishments and justify their questionable words and actions, or even say something about how I'm jealous or ask what I've done that's so great. For that last bit though, I will say, don't. This isn't a competition, and you're only reinforcing what I've said. You're being protective of a brand, and you're not helping. You're more than welcome to criticize me, by all means, but be productive. Don't fall back on that stupid argument. If you do feel angry or upset after all this, I want you to seriously ask yourself why that is, despite the fact that I haven't criticized you personally throughout the 6,000 word length of this video. Why do you believe that Vaush, Hasan, or anyone else that you're a fan of doesn't deserve criticism? If you feel this way, then I can only suggest that maybe it's worth creating some distance between you and the influencer to assess how and why you form this attachment and consider why it's potentially unhealthy. The fact is, this movement now has figureheads, and the attention market, along with algorithms, decides who gets to represent us. Our ideas are commodities repackaged in various forms and sold to the public in a way that's hopefully digestible and simple enough to internalize. I don't like that, if I'm honest. I'd rather class consciousness occur in a more holistic fashion, but none of us really have that choice. I also don't like knowing that I've contributed to this. It feels oddly exploitative of you, like I'm just saying what people want to hear because the audience gets comfort hearing this stuff from a person with a platform. Educating people is good, but I always thought that given the rot that's spreading in the world, the abuse of workers, the cost of existence, the death of home ownership, and the loss of precious time that we'll never get back, most people would have figured out that things aren't right without someone on the internet explaining why that is. It's just hard to keep the faith when we have to rely on people like Debate Bros, or to a lesser extent, rely on me. I'm not going to tell you to stop watching these people. You do whatever floats your boat. There's work to be done and not enough coffee in the world to keep people chugging for 24 hours a day, so do what you can. If you want to convince a friend that every time that they clock in at work they're agreeing to 9 hours of exploitation, and that by going the extra mile like the manager insists, then they're just making it worse. If you want to convince them that they'll never be rich and the reason why they're constantly unhappy is because the stuff they buy to dull the crippling feeling of alienation simply isn't enough, sit down with them and talk to them. Let them know you feel the same and why. Don't just send them a link to a stream or a video and let that do all the explaining. Try to connect with other people. Let them know that they're not the only one that thinks that this is all messed up. Let them know that there are people out there who want to take action and they're welcome to join. You do have a voice. Combine them and don't let other people speak for you, because one day you really might not like what they have to say on your behalf. Oh, one last thing before we go. I know this is a bit different, but if you happen to be Vaush, Hasan, Xanderhall, or anyone else like you, first of all, hi, big fan. Secondly, if by some miracle you end up showing this on your stream and you didn't ask me if you could air it in advance, then I should let you know now I don't consent to it. If you did ask, I'll be sure to say so in the pinned comment. If you didn't know, people will know. In which case, tisk tisk. Bye-bye. Well, thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, all of that stuff. It is very, very useful. Also, if you would like to support the channel further, you can do so at patreon.com/Salari. All the names that you see here right now are the wonderful people who support this channel and keep things going. I'd also like to give a special shout out to the following patrons: Mick, Gregory Wells, Natalie Doria, Toby, Ruby O'Connor, Fatey1703, Elizren, Xingping LL, Joseph Blair, Jonathan Morris, Donna Sato, Sean, Marcel Gibson, Rose Jane, Caro Schultz, Sem, not Sam, Bear, Thomas Tomacano, Mason, Bailey Grevling, Gerzon Bear, Hello Father, Tadeo Deoria, Ryan Osterman, Henry the Longshot, King Me, Christian Moyer, Catherine Pendell, Nicholas McDonald, Azul Crescent, in a Borat voice, my wife, never gets old, Alicia Crawford, Rachel J. Stark, Maurice Robert, Candide, Dan McCrary, Remy Allen, Daniel Perrone, Anna Marie Hanyasova, Lizzie Peasy, Grant B, Jay, Matthew Torres, Enrique Gutierrez, Murgugur Fashionable, Alina, R. Atoms, Games, Sanderpanda, CB Hart, Lillian Roan, Sharfay, Mickey Buenadonna, Sparrow Wagon, Marius Stubberud, Your Sweet Pea, Catherine, and finally, Freeman Killer. Thank you all so very much. Your support really does go a long way, and it's always greatly appreciated, regardless of how much you donate. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Like I said, if you got upset by me talking about your favorite, take a step back. Consider why you're upset at that. There's nothing against you or anything. And if you're angry, take that anger out on something else. Like, do some baking. Like, baking is great. I love it. It helps me de-stress and everything. Look, I made these macarons recently. Super nice. Difficult to make, but you know, you can start off with something simple like cookies. In fact, what I'll do for you is I had a Patreon made video about how to make cookies. I'm going to put that in the description below. So if you want to learn how to make cookies with my own recipe, you're welcome to do so. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching again. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I will see you next time. All right? Say bye. Unbelievable. Yeah. Good job.
See the star, don't you? You have to put that in there.